Welcome to the Introverted Poets Podcast. Welcome back to the Introverted Poets Podcast. With you in studio is Rachel. I'm back in town from Brooklyn. I know Ileana says there's been a lot of questions as to who I am and where I'm from, but if you're just tuning in, this is a safe space for the shy writer. Here at the Introverted Poets Podcast, we thrive on being anonymous and hidden just because some of our storytellers are telling true stories and they don't want stuff getting back to them, just like the boss lady mentioned in the second episode when we were discussing and reading The Collector. So in the studio, I have the boss lady, Liana Jade, here. The point of the podcast is to provide the safe space for storytellers and poets that both speak English and Spanish. Si hablamos español, we welcome the bilingual writer and the bilingual poet, and the boss lady, I'm told, can understand French and Italian. Is that right?
Yes. Je comprends le français un petit peu. Je comprends español. Yo hablo español, yo comprendo italiano, yo comprendo francés. También tomé clases en francés. Estoy estudiando italiano y ruso. Creo que se dice así. Pero también mi español no está tan bueno. No se crea. Like Rachel was mentioning, the point of the podcast is to provide a safe space for the anonymous writer or the shy poet. I'm going to say this in Spanish. El punto del podcast es para el poeta y el escritor o escritora que quiere ser anónimo o anónima y que es demasiado tímido o tímida y quiere un lugar para desahogar y para compartir sus trabajos. So, aquí no quiero que alguien esté, ¿quién es esa persona? Conozco a esa persona. No. Eso no es. Eso quita todo lo que es Introverted Poets Podcast. I don't need people to be guessing, I wonder who this person is, or I wonder who this person is. Because it takes away the point of the Introverted Poets Podcast. And the point is to remain anonymous. Although if you are confident in our author and are confident and don't want to use a pen name, you are more than welcome to submit as yourself as well. I just ask that when you come on the show, you don't reveal who your hosts are, because you might not get me, you might get Rachel, you might get Judash, because on top of this announcement, due to our episode on Pizzagate getting a lot of positive reviews and a lot of comments and messages, and people are requesting a part 2, we've decided to add Judash and give her a segment on conspiracy analysis, and you all can email her at the same location at introvertedpoetsociety@gmail.com, altogether lowercase, and also at our Tumblr at www.theintrovertedpoets.tumblr.com. And also now we are on Twitter at IntroPoetPods. I guess the Introverted Poets was already taken, so you can follow us on Twitter at IntroPoetPod, just the way it sounds. We will be posting questions on our Twitter, and then on the next episodes be reading the tweets that some of y'all sent. For example, for this episode, we're going to be reading some of the tweets about where our viewers the day September 11th occurred. We will be reading these tweets before we get on to the interview and the poetry and music we have lined up for today.
Okay, so last week when we launched our Twitter, the first question was, where were you the day September 11th occurred? This follower wants to remain anonymous, and they said that they were being the worst boss ever at blank after I told everyone to get back to work, not knowing what was happening in the world. The office next door rolled in a TV and we watched Disaster Strike again. We spent all day watching it unfold. Wow, that's heavy. Boss lady, where were you the day September 11th occurred?
I was on my way to class, and I was already running late, so I remember hearing the announcement on the local radio station. And just, being in 5th grade, I didn't understand the severity of the issue until I ran into class, and I was telling my class, hey, somebody crashed into the Twin Towers. And again, never knew what the Twin Towers even were to begin with. And then, not even a few seconds later, the PA went off and they were telling our teachers to turn on the TV, and that's what we did. We watched the entire, we watched everything collapse after the first tower. After the first tower, after I remember that day. After the first tower on is what we were watching, and I remember watching that all day long.
Interesting.
What about you, Rachel? Since you live in Brooklyn, like, how is it over there?
Well, it was before I moved to Brooklyn, and now everyone's very weary, and when you walk to the memorial, it's very quiet and somber and very tense. It's a very tense energy, and wow. But as far as I can remember, I was in fifth grade. Well, didn't we go to the same elementary? I was at DDHR when it happened, and I just remember being shocked.
I believe we all were shocked because nothing of that magnitude had ever happened to our country. So, naturally we all just were glued to the TV. I remember coming home and my mom and I just watching it like, whoa, that one plane crashing into the tower over and over and over again. And didn't that band Creed come up with a song for it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now let's move on to the next tweet. This next tweet is from the Root Dude. He says, I was in my woodshop class in middle school, first or fifth block. Didn't know anything until I reached my next class, which was social studies. My teacher was crying. She was devastated. This next tweet is in Spanish. I don't know if you want to take it, boss lady.
Yeah, I'll read it. It's from our Twitter follower named El Chiludo. Yo estaba manejando entre Loop y McPherson cuando muchas camionetas del Border Patrol salieron a cerrar las puentes. Llegué a la oficina y las imágenes del avión estaban en la tele. Okay, so for those of you who are not bilingual, McPherson and Loop are streets in Laredo, Texas. This station is in Laredo, Texas. That's all you're going to know about it. And McPherson and Loop are main streets. So what he's saying is that he saw Border Patrol trucks taking off to close the bridges, and that when he got to work, they were showing the news, is what this follower is saying. Oh my gosh, Rachel, you moved to Brooklyn and you don't know how to speak Spanish anymore?
Ay, cállate, shut up. Or whatever you girls say. Alright, and on to our next tweet. This next tweet is from Agent 23. He says that he was in school when the Twin Towers collapsed. Okay, now on to the interview portion. So, hi there, boss lady.
Hi. It's good to be back. Well, I'm always here.
So with us today we have the boss lady, Leona Jade, and she brought with us a series of poems to read. Boss lady?
Yes, this series of poems is called Letters to the Wolfman, and I wrote them back in 2016, 2017 when I first started dating my fiance. Hi, baby.
Oh, how cute. So this is gonna be poems about your fiance?
Yes, it is. Letters to the Wolfman is about my fiance. I wrote these when we first started talking, and I don't know, something about him just boom made me want to write. And honestly, it's probably because he's the first man to ever have said, I love the way you write. No man has ever complimented me on my writing before. They've always complimented me on my looks, which isn't a bad thing, but to have somebody take the time to read what I write and think about it and then be like, hey, I like what you wrote, was really sweet. Because when we were working together, because we met at work, I would be picking up tables, and in my little guest check, when it was slow, I would just, look out the window, be daydreaming, and just start writing and whatever I wanted to write. And at one point, one of them went missing. One of my notebooks went missing. He ended up having it, and he read them. He read those poems. And he even heard the very first episode, Pipe Dreams, when it first launched in 2016, 2017. He heard the episode and he heard the story. He even followed the Tumblr. He did everything. He was all, you didn't sound like you had any fun in that story. It would have been better had I been Adonis. And that took me aback. I was like, whoa. My coworker, who hardly talks to anybody, rumored to have a crush on me. He was listening to the podcast on creative writing. Really? That's interesting. That kind of piqued my interest. I was like,
Oh wow, that is very different and very interesting. Instead of hey, you look good, I love the way you write. Take note, guys, you need to compliment girls on their hobbies.
Yeah, no, yeah, first guy to ever be like, I love the way you write. Like, it's weird. I usually get complimented like that from my girlfriends. But yeah, but good point, Rachel. Like, guys, if you want to get a lady, you should look at what her hobbies are, and if you genuinely like that hobby, then go for it. If you don't, show that you support her. Like my fiance, for example, he's very supportive of the podcast. He's the one who got me the new software and the microphone, just because he's like, I know it makes you happy. So he genuinely does, like my writing, and he likes, the podcast because he says I get super cute when I get excited about things. All women do.
Yeah, so this episode is a special one for those of you who follow our Tumblr at www.theintrovertedpoets.tumblr.com and on Instagram at the Introverted Poets Podcast, also on Twitter at IntroPoetPod. We do normally post the poems we are going to hear a few weeks in advance to give you, the listener, a chance to read them and submit questions about the poems, poet, or the show. However, since this episode is a special one, we did not post the poems due to it being dedicated to the boss lady's fiance, and he follows all of our social.
Yes, that is correct. We're filming this episode in secret. Luckily, Rachel was visiting last week, so we were able to record a portion of it in September, and now we're doing the rest of it via the Zoom call. So, for those of you wondering how the interviews get done, for those that I do not know personally, we do it via Zoom audio only. That way, there is no camera, and it just gives me and the writer nothing but voice, which is the main medium we need anyway for the podcast. Provides the anonymous platform that we needed and the introvertedness that we need it to be. For those of you wondering how these interviews get conducted, like I said, it's just via the Zoom audio. That way we're able to download the MP4 and then use it to whatever software we use. Unless you all want to do it like the postal service and we send each other on email back and forth audio clips, we can do that too. But just to make it easier and more fluid, we do the interviews via Zoom audio.
Correct. So now on to our next question, since this will be launching on October 24th. What makes October 24th so special to you, Ileana?
October 24th is special because my fiance and I wanted to have a fall wedding, and I wanted October 24th. I wanted it to be on a weekend that's not Halloween, and also not a day where we have a rosary to attend to. We have two rosaries. We have two rosaries in the fall, one in September, which is coming up, and one in October. And out of respect for his side of the family, I would not want to get married on any of those days just because it's distasteful. And also, I didn't want to have a Halloween wedding just because the kids want to go out trick-or-treating, and to have to get them dressed in a costume to go trick-or-treating and to a wedding, that I don't think that'd be fair. And also now, because of the COVID, we have to postpone our wedding. So once this gets resolved, maybe in 2022, we'll get married. But for the time being, it's postponed.
OMG, that's super cute. So as opposed to getting married, you will be reading poems to him.
Yes, the poems will be posted after this. It's just that these poems were written for my love, and I wanted him to be the first to hear them before the public. So he'll be getting the link to the episode as soon as it gets posted.
How sweet. Before we get into the actual readings of Letters to the Wolfman, how have you been these past couple of months? The last time we spoke was in spring, right before the lockdown over there in Laredo, and over here in the NYC area, we were in lockdown before Texas. So, how have you been?
Fortunately, we've been doing good, just hiding since March. I only see my in-laws and parents. We don't go out. I've been doing good. Luckily, no one in the household has gotten sick.
That's great to hear, which brings me to my next question. Do you know anyone who has been affected by coronavirus personally?
Yes, quite a handful of people. All of them work in what is deemed essential work. They are on the front lines attending people, and a good 4 or 5 of my friends have gotten it, and one relative. Thankfully, they are all over it and haven't not gotten infected again. They overcame it and they're doing good, but they did all get sick at work, unfortunately.
Oh wow, that is so sad, yet good to hear that they all fortunately came out on the upside.
Yeah, most definitely. They're essential workers since they have to work in the food industry, gasoline stations. Some of them are in the medical field, and they've all gotten it. One of them even twice, I believe, but scary, so I don't go out a lot because a lot of people in my family have diabetes and high blood pressure. So to avoid any of that, I just stay in And also because my in-laws are in the elderly category, and I just have way too many loved ones in the risk group to be going out.
Smart choice. To all you listening at home, the only way to stop this virus out is by keeping distance and wearing our masks.
That's right.
Now, on to my next question. How are you keeping sane during this crazy year? Like, what keeps you sane during lockdown?
Luckily, my daughter and housework keeps me busy. Also, working on exams and job hunting. And of course, writing and production for the podcast keeps me very busy. Finding writers is a lot harder, and getting them to submit their audio clips is the tricky part, but it's getting there. We're getting.
Wow. That's very good on keeping safe and laying low. Now, aside from writing during this lockdown, what else do you do when you're not writing?
Well, when I am not writing, I am watching documentaries on YouTube or HLN, looking up stuff on true crime for that novel I'm working on. And also, like I said, I'm with my baby or with my fiance.
Oh, I'm super excited to read the novel, and that's awesome that you're doing your mommy duties. Now, how far along are you in the novel?
I'm about halfway. We are in the middle of the story.
I can't wait for it to be finished. When you were writing these poems, what frame of mind were you in?
Well, I would want to say that I was in a very amorous and infatuated state because it was right after we had just gotten drinks at Applebee's and we had our first kiss.
Oh yeah, I like to get the deets on that. So, how did he kiss you?
Like I said, he was dropping me off back to my car since we carpooled to Applebee's. We were having drinks after our shift, and the moon was big and bright. We were talking about hanging out some more, and all he said was, "I'm a bit buzzed right now, so I'm just going to go for it." And he kissed me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was super shocked and speechless myself.
Why? Was it a bad kiss?
No. Quite the opposite, actually. It was really pleasant and warm, and I felt so safe and at home. I was pleasantly surprised, to say the least.
How so?
Well, if you've ever met my fiance, I tend to call him my husband a lot. He's tall and brooding, looks all cranky, like Beast when he first meets Belle. I always compare us to Belle and Beast. Not that I am his captive, just that Belle brings out a softness and he gives her the best library ever. And anyway, moving on. When we first met at work, he was mean. He yelled at me and everyone was scared of him. So as the months went on, we began talking and working together. We got to know his fun-loving side. So when I heard the rumors that he liked me and he would message me on Facebook to hang out with him from time to time, I didn't think anything of it. I'm one of those girls that you have to tell me flat out that you like me, or else I won't get it. Like, your subtle signals are not going to register. You need to go bold or go home with me. When he kissed me, I was like, oh my goodness, the rumors have just been confirmed. He really does like me, and I was about 26 at the time.
So from then on, you were inspired to write about what happened.
Yes, something like that, and also like what else could happen, because it was just our first kiss, and I went off writing away for hours and days on end.
I can't wait to hear this. So with that, we will be taking our short music break, and once we get back from the music break, we'll be having the boss lady reading letters to the Wolfman. Stay tuned. And welcome back. This is Ileana Jade.
Letters to the Wolfman. Though you sense the brokenness within, you followed the curly-haired maiden into the darkness hidden. By watching her, the notion of having a glimpse into the mind of the maiden piqued your hunger even more. Is it her love of words? Her appreciation of the obscure? Or the way she sees the extraordinary in the mundane? Don't worry, Wolfman, for your attempt to steal a kiss from the lips left your hunger unsatiated as well. The way your soft hand placed her rebel curl behind her ear and the embrace of your hot breath left her tantal. Observing the situation between them, highly sedated, she wondered if it was about to transpire was real. Thinking out loud, she heard the words escaping her mouth, making the wolf question his confidence. Quietly retreating to his former seat, the wolfman bowed his head awkwardly. The raven-haired maiden, left with goose pimples, new desires, took in all of his masculinity. Tilting her head to the right, her subconscious right on her mind. But why did she freeze when he was aiming to please? Because the scars and burn marks from the last encounter remained. Even though he held the reputation for being ravenous and cruel, the maiden didn't fear the wolf. Intrigued with his masculinity, the maiden didn't want the first encounter to be tainted or wasted. For when she turns herself in, she needs to be ready to surrender and obey. But at the moment she wasn't. Feeling phased yet tense. So just know, Wolf, know that you have her where you want her. Know that your first attempt at clearing the signals wasn't a failure, but a success. Know that your soft touch and hot breath roped her into your world. Know that when she goes to you, she does so completely, acknowledging what will transpire and willingly so. Know that her craving for going down the rabbit hole was induced by your compelling masculinity. Know that your energy sparked a fire inside her poet's heart. A fire she no longer wishes to snuff out, but allow to consume her, mold her, and shape her little heart into a work of art. And when you grab her vulnerable neck as you swooping for a taste, the veil of the warrior will come undone, and the virgin or maiden will arise. Don't be afraid of ravaging her mind and soul, of sinking your sharp fangs into her core, for only you will know what the maiden is like when she is feeling most pure. Sincerely, the raven-haired maiden.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Right, so when you were writing this poem, I can tell that there were some kind of mythical themes going on.
The theme is just, adventures and romance.
Cool. What other literary device did you use on this poem?
The literary device I used on this poem was definitely allegory. I'm not a very strong rhyme person. Like when it comes to poems, I can't really rhyme, but I use a lot of metaphors and allegories. So the wolf is an allegory for my husband.
Why would you use the wolf as a symbol for your fiance?
He's a symbol just because he's so misunderstood. Like the werewolf is actually he's very romantic as a archetype. I feel that he's a romantic, passionate soul to look at the moon and long for her and just scream and howl and how much he loves her. And before we went out, we were friends for 8 months, and deep down my fiance is very sweet and he's very passionate, so there's a lot of similarities between the wolf and my husband, so that's why I chose that symbol and that archetype for these poems.
Interesting. So since we're going backwards in this episode, is there anything you would like the audience to know about these poems?
Just that they're inspired by my fiance, whom I love very much, and that I'm not a very strong poetry writer.
So with that brings my next question. Would you say that you're more of a poet or a storyteller?
I would definitely say I'm more of a storyteller, which is why I prefer to write narratives and do autobiographical fiction, because I can write about what I know, and it's easier, and it's easier to embellish. So autobiographical fiction is a passion of mine.
And as far as the writing process, what was the writing process for this particular sets of poems?
I was buzzed and in a total, I was feeling the butterflies, like those butterflies you feel when you're first talking to someone and you're all like, I don't need to eat because I'm in love. So it was definitely just having that experience with him and imagining everything that I could ever want, and being buzzed on those mojitos from Applebee's, I believe, where I was drinking Long Island's. I'm not too sure.
Alrighty, and on to my final question. With these poems have been your vows at your wedding if your wedding wasn't canceled?
That's a very good question, Rachel. No, I would have written fresh material a month before the wedding, so that way my husband could have heard something new, just because it's going to be a different special occasion.
Alrighty, that concludes this very special episode of the Introverted Poets podcast. Feel free to submit any works to www.theintrovertedpoets.tumblr.com, also to our Gmail at introvertedpoetsociety@gmail.com, altogether lowercase, now on Twitter at intropoetpod, and also on Instagram at introvertedpoetspod. Those are the many ways you can submit, comment. Also, we'll be posting new poems and short stories from our new authors. As mentioned, we do post the new works a few weeks in advance so that you, the listeners, can read them and submit questions to the author or poets about the piece that's going to be on the upcoming episodes and about the show or the host. I believe the next episode is going to be in Espanol. I am your host, Rachel Harris. Until next time, and stay safe.